Welcome to the Stage Analysis Members Weekend video. It's Sunday the 9th of October 2022. I'm going to start tonight's video by doing a special feature on what's been going on with gold and silver over the last week and the miners as part of the free content for the video. And then before getting into the regular members content, the indexes, industry group RS, the groups on the move, stage 2 breakouts and watch list stocks and the market breadth, etc. So lots to get through this week in what was potentially a pivotal week to come as the market's testing the lows of the 4-month range at the moment. So start off tonight with let's go through the gold and silver and the miners and see what's been going on there, as we saw some relative strength over the last few weeks in gold and silver miners. So starting with gold here, using the GLD as the proxy for the ETF. So you can see I've just got the entire stages that we've gone through over the last 3 or so years since late 2018 here. We started to move out in early 2019 here into stage 2, had that strong stage 2 rally into the buying climax in 2020. Did have a shakeout move during the stage 2 advance during the COVID lows, but quickly recovered. Gold was one of the first to recover back towards the highs again, and then silver followed fairly soon after, but had a strong move up, really strong stage 2 advance, but since then has generally been going sideways. It did have a stage 3 into a failed stage 4 breakdown, as I call it. So this is something that's not particularly in the method. This is a concept that I've kind of added in as my own, obviously after using stage analysis for the last 12 years or so. So basically it's when you get a selling climax and you only get a brief period below the breakdown point. So we started to move into stage 4 in this kind of area here. You see the 30-week moving average has just started to turn down at that point, starting to break the low. So we broke down from so at this point in here, it still wasn't stage 4, as you've still got a rising 30-week moving average. So when I do stage analysis, it has to have a declining 30-week moving average, using a simple moving average in order for it to be in stage 4. So this move down here was still just classed as a change of behavior into stage 3, even though it's strongly broken below that 30-week moving average and started to rally back up again. So this brief period below in here, it started to move into stage 4. It was a month or two, but then started to rally back up again. So we had the bottom of the channel line here as it formed. We see this was forming a channel, so you can draw your channel lines, the supply line at the top here, and then draw your channel line at the bottom of that, the parallel line. And then we had a shakeout below the bottom of that, which I highlighted at the time. Back in you can probably check back on the Twitter feeds for that. I started to highlight that this was attempting to put in a spring, started to rally back up again. And then as it started to move back through this 30-week moving average in here, we started to form potentially back into stage 1 type behavior. So it had a good rally back above the 30-week moving average there, held above for 5 or 6 weeks or so in there before strongly coming back in. This was on the significant bar here on the actual spot chart, came all the way down to the bottom of the range. So this is just the US session, obviously using the GLD. So then started to form a new sideways range as potential stage 1 range. Didn't go all the way down to the bottom of the range in the US session here using the GLD. Then started to make a new breakout attempt into stage 2 even back in February time here. So again, this was highlighted at the time. We talked about this quite a lot through this period as it started to move up and out into stage 2. We had some good moves in individual gold stocks, but it blew out, squatted into the old highs and formed what we call a UTAD test. So this is an up thrust after distribution. So this secondary range, this lower range that had been forming in here, so we've got this up thrust above the top of the range, and then we've got this lower high test in here, and then it started to come back into the range, started to break back down below the 30-week moving average. So at this point in here, you've got a failed stage 2 attempt. So we had a failed stage 4 attempt, and we've got a failed stage 2 attempt, both with similar sort of time frames, a couple of months before they started to fail and break down. Didn't make much progress in either, and then it's come back into the range again. So at this point in here, again, some people might be looking at this point as a significant bar here. It starts to break back down below the 30-week moving average there. But this point in here is still just coming back into the range after the failed stage 2. So at this point, it's still potentially stage 1. It could still recover at that point. But then once it forms that swing low in there and then breaks lower, so you can see at this point in here, it started to, the 30-week moving average started to turn down. So at this point in here, it started to move back into stage 4 again. And then classic drop down towards support area, rallied back up again after hitting support, back into resistance, and then turn back down again. So you've got your secondary entry point in there from the method on the short side. So really, really classical sort of entry points on the short side there as it came back down again, and it's been in stage 4 ever since. So now we've had a couple of strong weeks. We're still below this declining 10-week moving average here that you can see, and we did have a squat on this week's candle. So it was a strong week. It was still up 2.08% with the market having a negative week. So you can see relative strength versus the S&P 500 has been outperforming since February time, since it started to attempt that stage 2 breakout. So even though it's dropped down into stage 4, it's been relatively stronger than if you were holding the S&P 500 and by proxy vast majority of stocks. So with this kind of move that we've got here at the moment, we're in what we call a potential stage 4B minus. As if I drop down to the daily chart on this, so I'll just make a daily chart. You can see here it rallied up into the 50-day moving average, did have one tiny close above it, and then has pulled back in a little bit. So has started to break some near-term levels in here. So you can see we're still in that strong downtrend. So if we draw a downtrend line across here, we're still in a downtrend, we're still below the 50-day moving average here, but we are has potentially put in a little double bottom here. So it could potentially be making a swing low and could continue on up towards this 200-day moving average and start to build out a potential stage 1 base structure. But at the moment, it could just still be in a stage 4 decline here. So go into the trading view here and have a look at a bigger chart with my stage analysis technical attributes indicator applied. So this has got the stage analysis technical attributes indicator, what I call SATA, applied to it. There's on 3 different ways. So we've got it as the background bands, we've got it as the oscillator, which does the combined score of the SATA. So it goes from 0 to 10 and looks at the 10 of the key attributes that we look for in the stage analysis method. We're looking for above we've got a rising 10-week moving average, rising 30-week moving average. Have you got strong momentum? Is it above overhead resistance? Is it above the zero line in the Mansfield relative strength? All the kind of characteristics that we look for in the stage analysis method. This indicator basically registers them and gives it a score from each one. If it's positive, gets a score of 1, and if it's negative, gets a score of 0. So then it charts it. So when you're in stage 2, you tend to have a score above 7, and when you have the stage 2 breakout, it tends to be on a 9 or a 10. And the inverse of that is when you break down into stage 4. So you can see here the stage 4 breakdown point down here. So as I said, we started to move down into stage 4 at this point. So this was the stage 4 breakdown here. You can see it had a score of only 1 at that point. So, and then the bottom chart, the grid also shows exactly the same, but it also highlights one of them. One of the scores is a breakout or a breakdown. So it highlights those breakouts and breakdown points as well, which obviously are important for identifying the actual stage 2 breakout or stage 4 breakdown. So you can see we're in clear stage 4 at the moment. We had that brief period where it moved back above the breakdown level there again and then quickly reversed back below again. So still building out a structure here, but it's attempting to form a little range here. So if it does start to continue to build out, we could potentially start to move into stage 1 here. So, but at the moment, this, as you can see from the SATA rating, it's only got a SATA rating of 2 out of 10. So we're still very much in stage 4, but potentially stage 4B minus, which means we may have put in a swing low, but it needs much more confirmation in order to show that change of behavior and potentially start to move towards stage 1. So we've got silver, similar kind of thing. So it looks a bit more messy on this chart. We've got marked up quite a few areas over the last few years on this, which haven't taken off. So it's a little bit more of a messy chart here. You can see this downtrend channel that's been forming since this UTAD up here. So if we draw our parallel lines, we're still within this long-term downtrend channel that started back in January, February time, 2021. So we did have So you can see here we broke down from the structure in here. So at this point in here, if I draw a line down from this week in here, you can see we're breaking down. Mansfield relative strength was well below the zero line, which had started to turn down. So the relative strength was really weak at this point. We've broken multiple levels in here. So you see the moving average started to roll over as well. At this point, flatten out, roll over. So either this week or this week, it potentially, this whole area in here started to move into stage 4. But you can see it did actually go down to the bottom of the channel here. We had this change of behavior move through here as it rallied back up towards the 30-week, even though it rolled back down again. So it did start to form a range through this area. So let's turn all this off to make it a little bit less noisy. You can see it started to form a base structure in here. So it did move from stage 4 and then start to show some stage 1 characteristics. And like gold, it attempted to break out into stage 2 here, but again formed an upthrust after distribution, what we call a UTAD, and a test. So which is a lower high compared to the UTAD there. So this was a UTAD relative to the downtrend channel, not to the ultimate high up here. So we also had a UTAD up in this point up here from the original rally. So again, rejoined, started to pull back into stage 4 once more, broke the levels again, so moved back into stage 4 and has been in stage 4 since. So we had a good gap up week this week, but again squatted similar to the gold candle, a bit worse. Still had a plus 5.71% week, so it is attempting to transition towards stage 1, but we'll still class it as stage 4 B minus at the moment. It's basically been in a stage 4 downtrend for well over a year now, a year and a half, with that brief period where it had a stage 1 and failed stage 2. So it all becomes a broader stage 4 decline. And so we're very late in stage 4 at this point. Doesn't mean it can't continue to go lower. It could obviously continue breaking down once more. This could be just a redistribution once more. It could carry on down. But if this can continue to build, then this could be potentially starting to form stage 1. If we look at it from the SATA chart again, so the stage analysis technical attributes chart, you can see by the blue colouring here, over the last 2 weeks, the technical attributes have started to improve. If you look down on the oscillator down here, you can see they rallied out of this lower zone, so the score between 0 and 3, and started to move up from a 4, 5 and a 6 now. So currently we're on a 6. So we've got a little bit of what we call a change of behavior. So this rally here has been a change of behavior over these previous swings. You can see the broadening out of the swings as it's come down here since the secondary stage 4 breakdown here. So it started to break down into stage 4 at this point in here again. So this week, so it was your stage 4 secondary breakdown after this upthrust after distribution and test area in here. So you've got your original breakdown over in this point up here, as I said. So these weeks started to break down to stage 4 initially, had your stage 1, failed stage 2, and then rejoined stage 4 once more. But you can see now we've got this broadening formation on the swings, a little bit of a change of behavior, rallying up in towards that declining 30-week moving average here, with the technical attributes improving. So you can see these little green squares starting to appear down in the bottom there. But 6 is not, it's still only potentially a change of behavior into stage 1. So at the moment, I would still give this a stage 4 B minus. And again, if we look at this, we do the same and look at a daily chart of this one, you can see that structure, the lower structure on here a little bit more clearly. So we've got a base structure starting to form. You've got your local selling climax, automatic rally, secondary tests, more testing, and then started to break up. And then we've got a little bit of an up thrust and it's come back into the range again. So if this can continue to build, we can tighten up in the upper half in here, ideally underneath that 200-day moving average in there, then potentially we could be starting to see some stage 1 type behavior. But at the moment, it's still, I'd only class this as a 4B minus, potentially early stage 1 at best. So similar to what we've seen in gold. So what we do with this information is that we can see there's been a move in obviously gold and silver. So with stage analysis, the key to this is now looking down into the individual stocks. So I won't look at the Canadian stocks as well, because obviously there's a lot of gold and silver stocks in the Canadian market. So if you are interested in this, I obviously recommend going through those, but just to keep this brief, I'm just having a look at what's going on in the US stocks, and I've cut out any that were below $1, and obviously some of the mostly negative ones. So there's only about 30 stocks in here. So just looking quickly at the candle glance charts here, you can see what's been going on over the last week or so, a couple of weeks. We've had strong moves in some of these. This is one of the smaller names here. You can see it's had a really strong move, 3 up to 4 there. So more than 25-30% move in that one. Similarly, Harmony Gold here, EGO came up in the watch list, so it started to move up here as a 4B minus. Heckler Mining started to run up, so you can see all of these have had strong moves for a couple of weeks, similar to what we've seen in gold and silver, spot gold and silver and the futures. So there's multiple stocks from the group behaving in the same way as what we're seeing gold and silver behave. So as you would expect, and obviously it gives you a little bit of a secondary confirming type pattern on that. So if we go to, let's have a look at the scrolling view to go through these quickly. So you can see the 4B minus type behavior that we've got in here. We've got back above the 50-day moving average in here, and then started to roll back over again. So at the moment, got a little bit of a base structure forming on this one. So MUX, you can see we're still below a strongly declining 200-day moving average up here. So it's a long way from stage 2, as you can see, but you can see it's starting to show a small change of behavior in here. Similarly, HMY had this big rally off the low down here. So in the clear stage 4 downtrend on this is a daily chart. So the blue line is the 50-day moving average and the red line is the 200-day, and the grey dotted line is the 21-day. So you can see it's had a really strong move off of the low down here. So we'd give this a potential stage 4B minus. As you can see, it hasn't yet broken any kind of resistance zone in here. So to move to stage 1, this would need to do a little bit more work and start to show that it can either form a higher low and start to rally back above these short-term moving averages again, or continue to develop in the upper range here. So EGO, like I said, this one came up in one of the watch list ones. There was a bunch in the watch list last week, early in the week, and at the weekend, the gold group, precious metals groups, was highlighted on last weekend's industry group focus. So before majority of these started to move, so there's lots of opportunities for people to see them early in the week and last weekend. So before we obviously started to top out on some of them, so in the near term. So now we're into a potential testing phase again. Stage 4B minus type behavior on this one. We're still well below the 200-day moving average up here. Still ways to go. So potentially a little bit of a change of behavior, sign of strength, rally out of this lower base structure. So could be moving potentially into stage 1. Heckler Mining, one of the silver miners, again, similar kind of base structure. Got multiple levels in here, topped out a little bit this week with the rest of the market, but still showing good relative strength compared to what the S&P 500 is doing, back up towards the zero line there. Similar to AG, another one of the silver miners, one of the bigger ones, 8.5 million shares traded there on Friday. So again, this one's been basing for a while now. It's above this May low and the July lows that formed. So you've got multiple structures in here. The majority of the price actions formed in this area with a few dips below. So it's in the upper part of the range at the moment. So potential what we call a local spring type action within the range. Potential little sign of strength rally here. So again, change of behavior. This one's actually closer to that 200-day moving average. So if it can rally up and out through there, you could potentially start to move into stage 2 if it did. This one, AUY gold stock, more in above that 200-day moving average at the moment. Little double bottom pattern, change of behavior through here. So this one's got a good chance of moving into stage 2 even. So we'll look at that on the weekly chart quickly. You can see the move through here. There's a potential base structure starting to form with a spring through here. So this is our spring week. So we need to see this follow through up and out of the range. You could potentially start to move into stage 2 if that was the case on that one. So very similarly with all of these, they're all making similar kind of patterns. Not quite so good as we go further down the list. So let's change of behavior here in AGI. Again, this one came up in the watch list this week, earlier in the week. So it had a good move up and out through the 200-day moving average and is holding above at the moment. So still within this broader structure at the moment. So potentially in stage 1 at the moment, needs to break some more levels here. But if it starts to break up and through this kind of area and continues on some stronger volume, then potentially that could move up and out into stage 2 as well. AU, not quite so good in this one. Got a shakeout move, terminal shakeout here, spring type actions, comes back into the range. So this one forming a lower base structure, but still some work to do to get above that 200-day moving average, 18 to 20 area up there. Potentially it would need to get above to start moving towards stage 2 pipe behavior. So could just be moving through stage 4B minus, potentially towards stage 1 at the moment. Similarly with SBSW, same kind of base structure in this. So again, spring type action, change of behavior, breaking some near-term levels, has come back in again. So need to see this hold around this $10 level and start to rally up and out of this range to confirm this as phase C into phase D, and then potentially forming that stage 1. So as I said, lots of these, PASS, all doing similar kind of things, basing structures. The further we go down the list, obviously the worse some of these are. BVN also came up in the watch list, 4B minus into potential stage 1. So again, more base structures, SA, Seabridge Gold. See again, spring type behavior through here, spring number 2 in there. So CDE, this was one of the stronger ones that came up in the watch list, had this really good change of behavior move back to the 200-day moving average. So we've got potential stage 2 breakout level on that one. If we go to the weekly chart, you can see that level's now defined with this week's action. So we start to come back in again. Potentially we could see a move up and out through this kind of area. Potentially start to turn this up and out towards stage 2 type behavior. And there's many more, so I won't go through all of them. I just wanted to highlight some of these and show that the gold stocks themselves are obviously showing similar behavior to what we're seeing in gold and silver. So it's definitely an area of interest at the moment, especially for the short-term swing traders. So from a stage analysis perspective, we don't trade the stage analysis method doesn't trade the stocks until they're at least in late stage 1, ideally early stage 2, and the secondary entry point in stage 2. But as I use a combined Wyckoff and stage analysis method. So the Wyckoff entry points are actually from when you coming out of the base structure, so spring type behavior. So you can see we've had lots of spring type behavior through here. So we've actually got multiple entry points from our Wyckoff perspective over the last few weeks. So potentially there could be more Wyckoff entry points for short-term entries in the later part of the stage 4B minus into stage 1 kind of area. So it's a different approach. It's much earlier in terms of the entries. So it could potentially be seeing a change in gold and silver, but as I said earlier in the video here, it's still got more to prove at the moment. The downtrend has not yet been broken on the longer term timeframes, but there's certainly a potential change of behavior going on in the near term. So we could be starting to see some further basing type action. We could be moving towards stage 1 type behavior again. So which doesn't, as I said, doesn't mean necessarily that we're just going to go up and move into stage 2. Stage 1 obviously can go on for a while. Like last year's move in gold, we had a very, very long period in stage 1 where it chopped sideways for a long time with big swings in both directions. So stage 1 can have really strong moves like on the long side and really strong moves on the downside. So you've got to obviously look for your ranges and define your levels if you are looking to trade in stage 1, and that's where obviously the Wyckoff method becomes much more useful. So, and then obviously once we start to break out from stage 1 again towards stage 2, then that's when stage analysis comes back into vogue again. So like I said, that is gold and silver. Let's move on now. We're at 23 minutes. I think that's enough for this part of the video.